Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Meow.
Meow.
Yes, we are incognito. We're kitties and puppies, and our audience knows that, and we're hoping to find other kitties and puppies on the internet that need love too. So if you happen to stumble into this site and you said, "What the heck? Where are the pretty little kitties?" Well, just keep looking at the thumbnail and open up your ears, and you'll hear something that you probably haven't heard before. Thomas, I would like to talk to you about what in the heck is going on in the swamp.
Well, I think that Sessions is just there petting his kitty.
Does he have a kitty?
Yeah, we've seen pictures of him with kitties, and I think that's all he does. That's it. I mean, the things he announced recently. Oh, let's see, after a year, he says he's going to go after California because of their most illegal laws ever created in American history, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, complete defiance against all logic, all humanity, all rule of law. It's absurd. The concept is insane because if you say sanctuary city, you basically admit to committing a series of crimes. And so I'm glad he's doing that. But, hello, that was his big deal, and that's the reason he got the job, was he was going to help with immigration, illegal immigration, the borders, and so on and so forth. So far, look at what he's done. The ICE, they've arrested a lot of people, MS-13, that's all good.
Wouldn't that come in the normal course of the job? I mean, really, is it really spectacular, Thomas? I mean,
no.
If you have an attorney general, isn't he supposed to do that?
He couldn't have stopped this if he tried to. He couldn't have thrown himself down on the tracks and stopped the train. No, they would have ran over him. It's going to happen anyway. His stupid ideas about marijuana, one of the greatest healing herbs, especially hemp CBDs. You don't need marijuana. Hemp CBDs healing even Jimmy Carter. Everyone is using them. And in Canada, they have 11 hospitals that are filled with people getting nothing but treatment from CBDs. Jeff Sessions, you are so out of time.
But wait a minute. But if he is working for the globalists, who are the big pharma people, then he doesn't want marijuana to be out here as a natural healer because they want to suppress anything that's natural and good for folks.
That is correct. The pharmaceutical companies have made a synthetic CBD and synthetic replicants of the types of medicines that can be derived from both marijuana plants and hemp plants. And they're trying to take over the industry with marijuana pills, okay? Which aren't marijuana. They're synthetic. They're just, as you always call them, rocks ground up. So that's what he's doing. Yes, we could go into further of that. And he's simply, with his recent interview on Fox News, he has got me riled up because as I listened to him, the only thing I could experience was he speaks exactly like George W. Bush. Always talking points. Always spin. Always looking. George W. Bush spoke with a Southern accent, though he wasn't from Texas. So, the disarming charm of the Southern accent of Jeff Sessions reminds me of the terrible accent used by Kevin Spacey when he used the president in the House of Cards. It makes me sick. As I was listening to him, I wanted to vomit. This is what he said, folks. He said that the IG, Michael Horowitz, who was investigating he must investigate the FISA abuse with the dossier because it had to do with what Michael Horowitz's task right now is, which is to find partisanship or any slanted approaches from the FBI and DOJ against Trump. Mr. Magoo could find those on his first day out. Okay, Mr. Magoo. It's insulting to say that Sessions is like Mr. Magoo. Mr. Magoo is much sharper. Okay, so anyone could convict the criminals that Jeff Sessions is ignoring. Now, Michael Horowitz, let's go back to that in a second.
Oh, well, no, I just wanted to say, Thomas, that I read on the YouTube channels with people's comments, and they all think that Jeff Sessions and Michael Horowitz are the white hats, and they're working with Trump behind the scenes, and they're going to be riding out on their horses at any time now to save the world and put all the bad guys in jail.
Well, there's one source I don't like to bash that keeps saying, trust Sessions. I don't trust Sessions.
No.
I'm not going to trust Sessions. His actions are as follows. On Fox News, he said he was going to appoint one
Well, maybe they've read
non-DOJ attorney who has a lot of experience with the DOJ, which means hello, deep stater, who is now going to look at this, but not as a special counsel, just one guy, one gal, whatever. One person Michael Horowitz has a team of 500. And Michael Horowitz, this is what Michael Horowitz has found in his over a year-long investigation. He found out that there was corruption in the 50,000 sex texts between Strzok and Page. We get 372 of them, and they tell of a conspiracy that is ironclad and has so many references, it's disgusting. Those two aren't in jail. We know Bruce Orr worked not only with Jonathan Weiner, who was a Clinton plant, and also who worked for Uranium One, but those two were working with Christopher Steele, and they took the other DNC dossier from Sidney Blumenthal and Shearer, and they stuck that one in there with Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr's wife's GPS dossier, along with Comey's dossier and however many other dossiers there were, and rolled them all up into this dossier and got a fake FISA warrant. And then that was for not rigging the election. That was for overthrowing a sitting president. Don't forget this. This is a conspiracy to overthrow a sitting president still going on right now, being led right now by Mueller and actually Comey on the sidelines, who must have some type of immunity, seeing that he purged himself repeatedly. He lied to the president when he gave him his one-page summary of the dossier. He lied. He didn't tell any truth, except that it was salacious and unverified. But Comey's one-man delivery to Trump on this huge issue, which lied, didn't even give him the 35 pages, and his one page was a complete lie. And yet we are supposed to believe Comey? Why is Comey not in jail? He's committed so many crimes, 28 treasonous crimes. We outlined them. Look at the article. But going back to Mr. Magoo. Mr. Magoo says he put one person on it, and then people are speculating. And I don't want to bash the article I just read, but the reality is that's hopeful dreams. Michael Horowitz works inside of the Department of Justice. He is never, ever going to reveal the truth of the Department of Justice. Who's he going to reveal it to? The only person he can reveal it to is the Department of Justice. His job is, when he finds a crime during his investigation, to bring the crime up so the person can be immediately indicted. Because he already did all the research as the Inspector General. He has all the evidence. The case is made. He turns it over to an idiot attorney, and they prosecute. Are we prosecuting Bruce Orr for his treason? No. How about Peter Strzok? No. How about Lisa Page? No. How about James Baker? How about John Rubicki? How about Andrew McCabe? Okay, out of Michael Horowitz's entire investigation, all we get is 3 people were demoted, not locked up, and one person, he says, Andrew McCabe, after Andrew McCabe, has 4 investigations going on. All Michael Horowitz had to do was step up, say, can you give me the evidence of the 4 investigations on McCabe, and he should have put him in jail instead of saying, yes, there was a minor leak. So far, that's what we got from Michael Horowitz. Don't count on Michael Horowitz. Do not count on Jeff Sessions, one lawyer that doesn't even work in the DOJ, who is outside of D.C. We don't know who it is, and we know it will take years. And he's supposedly working with Michael Horowitz to supposedly go after people and supposedly creating grand jury indictments and setting up grand jury impoundments. Total nonsense. Total nonsense. If that were... he is in direct obstruction of justice because Trump has said he wants these things investigated and Sessions hasn't investigated them. Therefore, dereliction of duty, he needs to step down and be fired. Trump can't fire him now. It would look too bad. But he is a Bushite. He is an old Busher. He speaks exactly like Bush, and now I'm 100% convinced that he is an enemy of Trump at this point.
Well, then he would be an enemy of the people and an enemy of the state.
Correct.
And Thomas...
He's joined the conspiracy.
May I breathe? May I ask a question? I think this is why people are so fed up, they're ready to see military tribunals. So before you exit today, I want to talk about that amendment and the annex and leave folks with a little hope that perhaps that's the direction that we're going to have to move to.
Well, here's the direction. The direction is the Democrats are going to lose a bunch in 2018. And then Trump's going to be reelected, and they're going to lose even more. And after that happens, then we can clean out the swamp.
You mean we're not going to see anything before then?
Oh, no, we're going to see slow attrition of the swamp. We're going to see all the biggest rats jumping off or coming in strongly to defend themselves like an unfit Mitt Romney. He's coming there to defend the deep state.
In the Bush dynasty, he's nothing but another little Bushy.
He was complicit with 911.
Oh, yeah.
He was the backing behind so much that Comey, Mueller, the Vulcans, the neocons, he was right there with all of them. So we now see the big dogs coming out to defend themselves. That's why Mueller and his whole gang is there. That is the most ferocious, vicious gang of lawyers in D.C. Okay, so that's who we got fighting Trump. Is Trump losing? No, he's not losing. Now they're going after George Nader and Eric Prince because they had an accidental meeting in the Seychelles Islands.
How do you know all this?
It's in the news because it's a leak. And every single leak invalidates Mueller's investigation. The investigation must be closed down for nothing but the leaks. Period.
That question was for you to say, I read Truth News headlines every day.
Meow. I love Truth News. Meow.
Okay, go ahead. Continue on.
I don't know. What was I ranting
Well,
about?
I want to talk about the amendment and the annex because I want to see what are we going to be doing to obviously these guys can't police themselves and we got to get rid of them. Absolutely. I have to say this. HuffPo, which is just a liberal rag, whatever you call everybody knows out there, the Huffington Post, they've got their panties in a wad today because they're very upset that all of us out here are using the word globalist. So now they want to make that synonymous with a racist word, an anti-Semitic word. But it's not, folks. We know who the globalists are. They want to eat up they dissolve our national borders. They want to destroy our languages and cultures and just make us a one gray people on the earth all locked down in their prison planet with their 5G. Hey, look, everybody out there, you've got to remember that adage that good fences make good neighbors. Put up your borders and your fences and keep your nation and your heritage uniquely its own. One day, maybe humanity will be evolved enough that we can become this one world beautiful imagination, but I don't think we're evolved that far, Thomas.
The liberal progressive Democratic Party preaches all of those things and they do nothing about it. We've seen that with DACA, with gun control. We've seen it with the budget. We've seen it with everything. We've seen it with the fact that they wouldn't stop Obama from bombing 7 countries for 8 years continuously. The Democrats don't do anything. Remember that. They promise everything. They give nothing. It's kind of like Bernie Sanders saying he's going to take from the 1%, the billions and billions, and give everybody everything for free. Well, wait. Who's going to pay? No, Bernie, that doesn't work that way. I mean, anyone who would believe that might as well go back and start reading history about Marxism, Leninism. Look up who Trotsky was. Can anybody spell fascism? Can you spell? We're talking about the left is turning into what they accuse the far right of being, which is fascists. It's absurd. It's come all the way around to the other side. So when we hear what's going on in Washington, D.C., we need to just back off and realize that this is a turf war. Who's the turf war? It's not between Democrats and Republicans. It's between the old guard, bureaucratic, senior executive service type shadow government people who want to keep their job because of greed. And by the way, they get paid more than even the president does, the SES. They get paid more than anybody. They're outsiders who control our government. They all need to be offed at once. Goodbye. Tomorrow, 9,100.
Fired. I want to make sure we clarify that word.
Offed. Fired. You're fired. 8,000 of them are Obama appointees.
Can't he just eliminate that whole program?
Yes, he can. It is.
Well, why isn't he?
He might not even know it exists. It's one of the most hidden programs in the government. But there are many, many hidden programs. Trump is handling more than anybody could possibly handle. I liked one thing that Mr. Magoo said in his Fox interview, which is nobody can keep up with Trump. He moves the ball forward. No one in the world could do what Trump is doing now. So he, of course, those are his talking points to keep his job. But what he didn't say is more important than what Sessions did say. He did not say, I'm aggressively going after a conspiracy against the President of the United States. He did not say, I unrecuse myself from the Russian accusations of the Democrats and the colluding Department of Justice. Well, all the intelligence communities colluded against Sessions and tried to accuse him of being a Russian spy. When there was a recording of both of his conversations, he didn't know it. He never needed to recuse himself. He needs to unrecuse himself. Fire Rosenstein because he signed for one of the dossiers and go after these criminals because it is more than obvious. If he cannot bring a case, he appointed There's one person appointed by Christopher Wray to look at the largest espionage case we've ever heard of in America, Imran Awan. We have one lawyer appointed who is supposedly working with the Inspector General. Mind you, Sessions refused to appoint a special counsel, though Trump demanded that he investigate these things. He refused to.
Well, he's a globalist. He's working for the folks that want to take down America.
Yeah, and we call them transnationalists, internationalists. We call them anything but Americans. That is what George H.W. Bush called the New World Order, which he said, you can't stop it. We're taking over. I mean, his words were chilling when he first announced this in the United Nations.
I think he deliberately recused himself on this minor issue so they could sneak in Mueller, because he's got so many crimes he's got to cover up and hide. And with not only him, but all of his buddies from 9/11 on.
That is correct. Now, let's remember, Comey came in as a setup to cover the Democrats. Okay? And what his job was supposed to be was to cover for Hillary. Generally, Mueller covers for the Republicans, but they'll cover for each other because it's a uniparty system. But what you see here is the Republicans who were part of 9/11 could go down because Trump said he was going to investigate them. The number one guiltiest person that you could put in Guantanamo Bay tomorrow would be Mueller, because he ignored even doing an investigation of 9/11. He just screamed, terrorists, terrorists, like he's now screaming, Russians, Russians. You see? Does it sound familiar? You create a new enemy and you distract from the enemy within. And that's who Mueller is. Mueller is the worst, some of the worst of the enemies within. Comey's right there with him. Andrew McCabe, Rosenstein, they all got to go. But now, I'm sorry, Jeff Sessions, either you need to quit now, or I predict, personally, Thomas Paine in the ass of the globalists predicts you will go down with the rest of them in the conspiracy if you do not quit now. You cannot do the job because you are not up to it. You don't want to do the job. You've displayed that again and again. When it was demanded that you investigate these things by the president, you didn't. If he didn't have the mess with firing Comey, he would fire you. You are a very bad person at this point, whether you know it or not. Through commission or omission, you have committed crimes against the state, and you need to step down, Jeff Sessions, if you want to save yourself, or else you will be considered just like the rest of them. If you cannot find the guilt to indict these criminals with the evidence that has already surfaced, then you are on their side. It is as simple as that.
Now, in the description box below, folks, you're going to see a crime line, a link to a crime line. You need to open that up and learn how to use that research tool, because it was a project that was 17 years in the making that shows the indictable evidence for all these guys. So, one person could actually do it if they had the crime line, Thomas.
Meow. Betsy, I have confirmation from the conclave who say that I was correct. That this executive order putting in the new corrections to the Uniform Code of Military Justice is a pretense for what will become military trials of people who are part of this conspiracy. Yes, it seems as if it is been set up to do that, and the conclave is looking at this, and they've looked at it very, very closely. And what it seems to be is people aren't noticing the additions that Trump made. The additions are to go after all the pedophiles through the military, which is a huge amount. We already have a list of hundreds and hundreds that have already been caught doing this and not being prosecuted. They've been ignored both in the State Department, in the FBI, and in the Pentagon. Literally, between the three of them, over 1,000 people. All need to go to jail for child pornography. But we'll see what happens with that. The point is the evidence is there. So if he wants to go after them, what he needs to do is go after them for the big crimes. Forget the little crimes. Go after murder. Go after 911ers. Because Mueller's a 911er. So is all those other people I mentioned. But there's other things they can go after. They can go after the uranium one. Mueller was up to his eyeballs in that. They can go after the fact that he changed the evidentiary procedure for Waco, Ruby Ridge, for Oklahoma bombing, and on and on. He has been the deep state setup to make sure that the court system stayed corrupt. We could go after him for the uranium fix here in America, selling out American uranium, selling out basically the entire nuclear program of America, having 10 Russian spies that worked with those oligarchs, the 10M oligarchs who ran the uranium for Rosatom in America. That was all a Mueller deal. Every speck of that criminal activity, those 10 spies that he kicked out without prosecuting. The Douglas Campbell, who's on his deathbed, has come forth and he says he saw the millions of dollars of payment directly given to Hillary Clinton for her participation in it, and nothing happens. No, there's a tremendous amount happening. Mueller's the busiest man in the universe trying to cover up things and make it look like nothing happened on the Democratic side and something happened on the Republican side, though in fact it seems every time he thinks he finds something, whether it be Sergey Millian or whether it be Alexander Downer, who now we find out gave $25 million to the Clinton Foundation. He was the one who brought it to the attention of the Intelligence Committee that he was having a drunken conversation with George Papadopoulos, and that at that point there was reference to 33,000 Hillary emails. And supposedly that started the counterintelligence investigation, which really started with the CIA, then went to the counterintelligence department of the FBI, William Priestap, who's one of the most guilty people in all of this, whose name has barely come up. And some say that he and Strzok and Page and Orr and Nellie Orr are all working with Michael Horowitz. Nonsense. Nonsense. That means that Horowitz would have ignored their crimes. If he saw the crimes, if he had his eyes open, Horowitz would have had to bring the crimes up and they would have had to indict those people. Horowitz did nothing. He helped cover for them, told it to the DOJ, and they did nothing. Okay, so don't tell me how that those 5 people are working with Michael Horowitz and they're turning in all their bosses. No, they are not. Their bosses like John Rebecki and James Baker and Andrew McCabe and Courtham and Weiner and all those people, they're all jumping ship. But that's because they think that's going to keep them from being prosecuted. Well, if they're working for the government, it's much harder to plead the fifth. So when they quit, they thought that would protect them. And John Carlin and all those people, all dossier people, every one of them, all Hillary email scandal exoneration people, all Mueller investigation people. Now, hello, Jeff Sessions, Mr. Magoo. You're one guy that you say you have appointed to this. He hasn't brought any indictments. Where's his work? Can you show us? Can you tell us his name? Because I don't believe you, Mr. Sessions. I'm going to call you someone that I do not trust and that may be just making this up, because you only say it after you've denied that you're going to appoint someone, and then when you're pressured tremendously by Congress or by the news, then you say what? Oh, I'm letting the IG do that. He's got 500 people working for him. Oh, I appointed someone that I'm never going to tell you who it is.
Well, they're there to be obstructionists, to make sure that none of this gets flushed down the toilet.
He is the definition of obstruction of justice at this point. Yes, he is. Mr. Magoo is the hugest obstruction of justice to what is called the Purple Revolution. Whether you know it or not, folks, Soros is still attempting to overthrow a sitting president a year after he was elected. And they still think in their mind that if they get Trump out, believe this or not,
well, they're deluded.
Hillary gets in. This is the way they think. It is unbelievable. There is no law in America that they respect. If they impeach Trump, Pence wouldn't become the president in their mind. They would say that the election was false and go back, even if it was 7 years before, and try to put Hillary Clinton, which means Chelsea Clinton,
but would they
and Bill Clinton in the White House.
Would they be able to go back into the White House with the U.S. Digital Services and rig the election? I mean, there are a lot of things that they can't undo at this point because people are too awake and on to their game.
Well, Trump hired one of the number one guys who already has called them out and said, we're watching you. We know what you did last time. We know about the template for election that Eric Schmidt paid for, $1.5 billion. We know what you did with Google. We know what you did with YouTube and the algorithms. We know the psyops going on at Facebook. We're watching you and we will prosecute you. Because why? I work for the president.
And that's called meddling in an election.
That's called go to Gitmo. No pass to get out. No get out of Gitmo free pass. No, this is an attack upon the U.S. Constitution. It's still going on. It's the Purple Revolution. We have been fighting it since before the election to get Trump in, because otherwise the Republic would have been overthrown very, very clearly. And if you don't know that, then, just do some homework. Look at some facts instead of just listen to spin like a Jeff Sessions. If you listen to Jeff Sessions on Fox, you think, oh, he's a nice little old man. He looks like a cross between Yoda and a kitty cat. No. He's a vicious, mean Bushite who has now joined the team of a conspiracy against his own boss. Unless he steps down today when he hears this. And then I might believe otherwise.